Hi, everybody. Very excited to have another one of our past kind of partners working with us, and our very first partner working with us, Leanne Hammond from the Community Foundations of the North Okanagan. Thanks so much, Leanne.
Hi, thank to you.
So you have a whole new level of adventurous to you when you decided to sign on. When we had this idea, and I think we had 11 days from like, okay, we're gonna do a stay-at-home gala, and you were like, what? I'm like, yeah, and it's gonna be next Friday. And I don't know if it was an immediate, but you were pretty quick along the way to jump on. And I don't think that we'd be here today doing what we're doing had you not been such a open to the idea and open to going into it. So I first, a huge thank you, because I don't think that we would have, I don't know if it would have launched, I don't know what would have happened, but I don't think it would have been as smooth as it was. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you. I was thrilled to be involved right from the start. It was exciting when you made the call, and certainly I think I probably did say yes, like the second line into it, just because it seemed like such a brilliant idea and something that timely wise. I mean, it was so bang on with what needed to happen in the sector. So I was thrilled that you called.
Yeah, it's well, I was looking back, and March 27th was the first one, which I think back, like I remember thinking like, this is gonna be a tough month or two. We're gonna have some times are gonna be straight, and now being into October now, it's been a little bit longer than we anticipated, but yeah, maybe if you could just share a little bit about how you were, like, that was all starting, things were getting crazy. What were you feeling at that point, and why was this an important thing?
Okay, well, the first thing that I was thinking as the executive director of a community foundation is how the heck are we going to support the charitable sector? And how are we going to be able to keep money coming in to be able to support the charities out there that are doing the frontline work when we can't hold events, when we can't see people face to face, when all of a sudden, when we're in the relationship building business and all of a sudden you can't sit down and have a coffee with somebody? How are we going to be able to do this? And a lot of groups use face to face. A lot of groups use event-based fundraising, galas, and all that kind of stuff. And so that was rolling around in my head and worrying about how we were going to be able to do our granting as a community foundation. And then you phoned and said, "Hey, we have this crazy idea, and we'd like to do it like next week." And I thought, wow, that's amazing that came up at the perfect time. And so it was something that I think just like absolutely the serendipity was amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of things unfolded to just create something that really was, it was a fun evening. I remember the evening of, and maybe we'll talk about the process of getting there, but like the evening of sitting there and watching it and just being like, this is actually happening. This is like, it just was such a, and we were all in our first phases of isolation. And I think that, like, it was the first time that I had ever been in that kind of isolation. And it, while it had only been a few weeks at that point, or 3 weeks or something, it was like, it was such an awful experience so it was so not indicative to what the human experience is typically. And then to sit and have that and be like, I feel like I'm kind of participating in something right now. And it just felt so good to see that happen. That part was a lot of fun.
I think you really nailed that part, was that we were feeling like we wanted to help each other out. And all these people were isolated, socially isolated. But when we came together that night and I was watching everybody, the speakers say their piece and the musicians do their thing, and it just felt so warm and you felt connected. You felt connected. It didn't matter that it was virtual. And also, I mean, it was one of the first virtual, well, it was the first virtual event I had ever been involved in ever. I've seen things come together since, but the seamless way that it happened, the way that people stepped up, the quality of the sound, the quality of the participation, the seamlessness, the way you'd have a musician playing something, and then you would have a speaker come on, and then you would have the MC, the host, going back and forth, and to realize that all that was happening seamlessly, and nobody was in the same room together. Absolutely blew my mind. It was amazing to see.
Yeah, it's first virtual event for me as well, but also the first event that I've ever been. I've been involved in tons of events, whether local or Ironman or these big crazy events and all this. But we never once met as a team in person. Not a single person ever met the other person. There was people on our team that I didn't get to meet in person until we actually finished the event. And I think, we had some great members of our team that had experience with virtual teams, and we like made those planning sessions work. But yeah, that was a whole bunch of firsts all along the way. And who would have thought that it would have rolled out? I mean, our original goal was 10,000. That was like, if we could raise 10,000 in a week and a half. We were just kind of like testing it out and let's do one, and kind of in this startup way. And it caught fire, and all of a sudden, well, I mean, then when we rolled into the national one, and and like, again, a huge thank you to you, because again, the national one likely wouldn't have happened, but you were the one that taking care of all the finances, making sure that everything was being paid out properly, making sure that all the money came into the right place there. So the joys of working from home, the honesty that my dog is saying maybe a squirrel outside.
That's funny. Well, one thing that you just said that really struck me was that the fact that none of these people really knew each other and met up until the very end, but it felt very it felt very close. Like everybody felt this sense of camaraderie and team. And I'm quite a bit older than you and some of the kind of colleagues that came together to put this together. So I had my doubts. I had huge doubts about whether it would feel whether it would really be fun and whether it would feel really genuine, because I haven't had that much experience with computer-based stuff even, and so the way that it came together just blew my mind. I felt totally included. I felt totally natural. I had a really good time. Everybody that I talked to, regardless of their age, had a really good time at the event. And nobody had to try and drive home or get a cab. So it was brilliant. It just I thought, wow, this is way better. I don't have to buy an expensive dress. I don't have to stand around in heels when my feet are killing me. And I'm totally entertained. I'm totally comfortable, and I'm in my element, and I still get to have a really good time. And all of the money, the bulk of the money goes straight through to the charities. The way you can kind of pare back the expenses to just the bare minimum is what I think people are learning a lot as we go through this, in seeing that, the pomp and the decorating the room and having all that stuff. In the fundraising world, a lot of money gets spent on that stuff. And that's not what it's really about. What it's about is the quality of human interaction. The amount of time spent together doesn't need to be you guys do a lot of work and spend a lot of time getting organized for it, but for the rest of us who are participating, it doesn't need to be that big of a deal. And the charity comes out with the lion's share of the money, which I love. I really love that part.
Yeah, I think that was the exciting part of, we did a lot of the discussions about accounting afterwards, and that while I maybe am capable, I just really, really despise that portion of wrapping everything up and getting everybody paid. And the payments at the end of this thing were much simpler than a traditional event would have been. But you've inspired me that once we get to gather as people again, or if we'll do some sort of a cheap dress. Maybe you have to go and it's a thrift store dress or something, and barefoot, no heels allowed. No, maybe
No.
wash their feet on the way in, but we can make something a little more fun again.
Exactly.
So when we first started talking, and when we kind of first started looking into this, like, what were your hopes financially from it? What was the big goal that you would have seen?
Well, for the local one, so for anybody who's thinking of holding a local one, we're a relatively small community, mid-sized community. I was thinking that you would do really well if you brought in about $10,000, and I think you blew through that away in a couple of days. I think the first one we brought in at least $50,000 to $60,000, if I'm correct. We'd have to look that up again. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's I think what we brought in. For the national event, the fact that by expanding it across the country and having community foundations and then other partners in each area, that was, I think, brilliant, because each community has the ties to their local sponsors. They have the ties to their local folks who can get the word out, get the message out in their social media. That gives them the chance to focus on what they're good at. And it makes the part that you do, it takes that out of their responsibilities. So you do what you're really good at. The administrative part gets done seamlessly, as long as you have someone on the back end who's doing that part. Trellis is brilliant at doing the part that they do, and everybody gets to play to their strengths. Nobody has to do anything that they're not all that comfortable with, and you get an incredibly high quality product that everybody just has a ton of fun doing. So it works really, really, really well.
I couldn't think of like a better endorsement to be able to have on our it's fun, and it was really interesting, and we've gotten a lot better at the process now, and figuring out how we go and communicate to people, and how we, all that stuff is really come a long way since then, and our team continues to work on these. But I remember the very first one, like the day of, I'm like, how do we do this? And we're just, and then the next one, I was talking to Darcel actually, and talking about, like, I would share an email, and we would use Google Drive so that we could always be updating things, and seeing people logging in as I'm still typing out the email to that they would be sharing out to their participants. And just so many things that we never really anticipated. Not that they're completely unforeseen, but it's just a totally different experience online and in person. Instead of giving instructions on how to get to the gala and how, taking care of safe rides home, we had to give like detailed instructions of how to tech check, and how to, what to expect, and how to engage differently. And so it's been interesting as we've developed kind of those skill sets and experience coming in.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we really need to keep in mind, is that you pulled it together in a couple of weeks. You pulled the national one together in another couple of weeks. All of this happened incredibly quickly, so it was an organic process. But the one thing that I think was the absolute critical, the linchpin of it all, was openness to learn. And all of us felt like team members. So pick up the phone, explain what the situation is, and any of your team, whether it be the volunteer team at that time, whether it be Trellis, the responsiveness and the willingness to kind of find a way to make it work and take care of it quickly was what I think was absolutely key. And now, when I look at how things have come together in the more recent stuff that you guys have been doing, it's amazing how far you've come, how fast. Because until you run something like this, you can try your best to anticipate what's going to come up, but until you've kind of lived through it, there's new things all the time. So the constant tweaking and making everything better, I think that is really key to improving the process. And so each different group that you work with will have a slightly different set of expectations or kind of bells and whistles that they're going to want. And I have no doubt that you'll be able to deliver on what it is that everybody wants to see happen.
Yeah, thanks. That means a lot. I think it's really exciting now. We've got like kind of a template that we go through with people of how to brainstorm, but it's not really like a pick and play thing. We go through and we try to really work directly with, like, okay, well, what's your existing sponsors? Let's make sure that they are given I think the biggest thing we've learned through online is that people just need to be given an invitation that sounds reasonable. The audience needs to be given an invitation to participate in a certain way. Sponsors, it's the same way, invite them to it, but you can't give them a table anymore. And so it's just a different mix of sponsors, and how you give them the value. And, we find we do a lot more awards now. We've started coming up with like donation rushes. So sponsors are pledging to match donations. And so we're just changing it all the time, but we get to, we're in the design phase of events nonstop. And we're just like, I'm going back to some of our first clients and their event. We've got two events in 2 days, and 2 and 3 days. And we just had this brainstorming with a new client, and I came back, I was like, okay, I know we've got 2 days, take it or leave it, but it's really easy. Here's how we do it. Here's this. And I guarantee we can get an additional 5-10 grand. Like it's great. And I think that's kind of the cool thing is I get to like peer into all these different events and participate. And it's been just a lot of fun.
It is. It's a ton of fun from both ends, from the person who's attending, from the people that are having fun organizing for each of the communities that are doing it. And I think that iterative process back and forth is critical to kind of having fun and it being creative, because when I think about sponsors and I think about what would work for them, one thing that had never occurred to me before you guys did this was that you had a bartender who made a drink, and everybody at home who had been, pre-sent kind of a list of ingredients that they might need to have on hand for such an occasion was at home. I was making my drink while I was watching the bartender show me how to make my drink. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, that was just so cool. And you can be a wine sponsor or you can be a spirit sponsor at an event and you get kind of lost in the shuffle. But that gin is now in my house. And I now I know how to make the drink. So I'm going to buy that stuff. Right. So when you think about the true sponsorship, you can activate in a way that actually I think it's going to be hard, even when we get back to doing physical events with people in the room. It's going to be hard to beat that.
Well, and that's, we're one of our national partners. They're talking about, they never got to do a gala with all their audience. It was always like Calgary or Toronto or Medicine Hat, or, they would do these galas, but it wasn't something that everyone participated in. And now all of a sudden you can have all of your donors part and they're really excited about that. And, even the Okanagan for an example, like, we're not that big, but people don't really want to drive. And now being able to do these and join forces, and it's just kind of taken down some barriers that we didn't realize were there before.
Right. And how easy is it to be able to, for talent that's going to be a part of this, how easy is it to share somebody's talent who can, I'm thinking of the Barney Bentall, standing out in his own, on his own property with a horse and his granddaughter on the back of the horse, singing, and the quality of the sound and the naturalness of the environment was just incredibly wonderful. And he just did a couple of songs, and that's all he had to do. He didn't have to prepare a whole set. He didn't have to travel. Wow. So we got to see so many different bits of talent, and we got to also then have a lot of local presence, and that local presence and having people that I care about speaking. I don't know, there's something about that local flavor that just makes it way more meaningful than watching something where everything's out of, pardon me, Toronto.
It's a West Coast thing. We're allowed to be a little bit upset sometimes.
Right. Next time I'm in Toronto, that's not going to go over well, I'm sure. But
now I know, I kind of know we always ask this question of, would you refer us? And I know that you've actively, been sharing your testimonial with people and connecting whenever needed and stuff. So, but maybe why would you refer us?
I would say because I was just so blown away by the finished product. So, again, being somebody that would never know how to, get from, one speaker in one area to another speaker in another area, and then talent in a third area, how to orchestrate that all. I was scared, really scared, up until the very last minute on the very first event that you were going to be able to pull that off. And the fact that at your very first event, that part of it was pulled off absolutely seamlessly, I would have no hesitation. So even when people have done their own events locally, there's always hiccups. There's always little things that go wrong. And I didn't see any evidence of that at all in the actual evening, that event. So that would be my strongest kudos to you guys, is that the quality of the production, the sound, and the way that things just flip from one camera to the other, from one city to another. That was the thing that blew me away the most. So that part of it. The second part of it that I would say is absolutely astounding is how much money, how much money you're able to bring in a very short period of time. So we all know that everybody does things last minute. We all know that we buy tickets last minute, that we decide how much money we're going to give last minute. So to some degree, you capitalize on that, right? You watch the meter go cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It just keeps moving. About a week before the event, it's just like boom, it's going, and we can all share with our own spheres of influence. And as that starts to multiply out and out and out, it's just amazing to see the results. So this is all about, bluntly, this is about raising money. So you do it. And that's what we're trying to do, is to get money from events so that we can keep doing all the great stuff that we do.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. And obviously, our it was crazy to see it all happen, and a month and a half of volunteers working pretty much full time. I know, myself and a few others, because of COVID, we didn't have any work going, so we were just working on this full on. And it's pretty exciting now to be in a place where I can call this work. But I think even still at that point, we saw that there was an opportunity, and we saw that there was a need, and much like you said, the community banded together. And I think it's really powerful when we can see all that happen, and just really grateful to be a part of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that any group that works with you guys is going to be grateful that they had the chance to work with you too, because it's a very personalized, very responsive type of relationship, and that's exactly what we need right now.
Perfect. Well, would you do it again?
Yes. In fact, I'm already thinking about what we could do next. Definitely, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
That's awesome. And I would absolutely say the same. I loved working with you. Our communication made my life so much easier having you as a part of our team, really. You're very, very active, and it was really exciting to see all that come together. And who would have thought? Like, I still am pretty mind blown when we look back and we're like, 23 or like 11 days for the first one, and everything's going and it's crazy, and then we go and we do this big national one, and then to raise $500,000. And I don't dare take credit for that $500,000. There was a ton of community foundations, and like everybody came together to make this thing happen. But just to be a part of that was such a spectacular time. And it feels so wild to think of how long ago and how recent it was. But I think that there's definitely another one in the works, I hope so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if we can pull together that $500,000 in that relatively short period of time, wow, it's pretty amazing what we could do given a little bit more time. And I don't know, my sky's the limit.
We'll get working on the next one pretty soon here. Time helps, that's for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Leanne. If you got anything to add or anything else, it's always welcome, but really appreciate your time.
Well, I just like to say welcome to, working in the fundraising world and working in the area of social purpose and charitable work, because you'll never find anything that's as fulfilling as this. And we're glad to have you.
It's great to be here. So thanks so much, Leanne. Have a great day.
See you too.